Welcome back to the last leg of today's summit. And we have another very, very brilliant panel discussion lined up for you right now. So, we've heard this quite a few times during the previous discussions, the sessions that we had during the day about biases in AI, right? So, what do we know about these biases in AI? And the answer to that question is in our last panel discussion of today with the topic the role of bias in prompt engineering of AI. And let me introduce you all to our eminent group of panelists who we have here with us. First, we have with us Dr. Sanjeev Chaube, EVP and Head India AI, Big Data and Advanced Analytics for Vodafone Idea. Can we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? All right, next up on stage, we'll have Mr. Saugata Bagchi, Global Head Digital Experimental and Content Marketing, Tata Communications. A round of applause. Third we have with us today is Mr. Kasam Shaikh, Senior Architect, Capgemini and Microsoft MVP AI. And now the moderator for this fantastic panel is Mr. Kaushal Thakkar, founder and managing director of Infidigit, who will be moderating this discussion today. Over to you.
Hey, thanks for this. So we have a very diverse group of people present over here today. So we have Sanjeev, who's heading multiple different divisions, and specifically what I was interested about AI and data. Right? We have Saugata, who's more of a user, a marketing user, just like all of us over here. And then we have one techie, an author of 4 books on AI, and he's even writing a book on prompt engineering, etc. So I can't go into the details. So that's where we have Kasam also. So that's where the diverse audience is. But before we start, I just want to understand how many of us are well aware about prompt engineering. Because yes, if we don't understand that, this entire session would not be that easy. So can we have a raise of hands in terms of prompt engineering? How many of us understands prompt engineering? So accordingly, I can plan the session. Perfect, that helps. Okay, Sanjeev, we have this interesting question to you then, and that would be the first question. Can you help me understand what is prompt engineering?
Thanks for having me in the call, this panel discussion first. And I think pertinent question. Prompt engineering is very, very important, right? Because if you ask right question, you get right answer, right? So that's why it is important to tweak the textual input that you provide to a artificial intelligence engine, or which is nothing but a combination of natural language processing and bunch of neural network algorithms, right? Which are called as transformers and then backed by the LLMs, right? Large language models. Now, so this is what is prompt engineering in a layman term.
Perfect, thanks. Kasam, we would like to have your view also if you would like to add anything on top of that.
In a very simple terms, prompt engineering is an art and not a science.
Okay.
It's a way you talk to AI. It's a way you convince AI to get your response, what you want. Basically, when we talk about artificial intelligence, we know it's not artificial and it's not intelligent. So we need to make it, or we need to change it, or we need to talk in a way that what we want as an output. So, and that too, when we talk about engineering, it should be a cost-effective one. So, in a bunch, it's an art of refining what you're talking to AI with the cost-effective stuff.
Perfect. Thanks for that. So, where Deepali left off, let's start with that particular thing. So, Deepali also was speaking about how the data gets used. I'm not aware about it, and I would like to understand whether my data is being used by the AI. Right. So that's at least a question again to Sanjeev there. What are your views in terms of usage of data? Right. Is this data getting used if the data is getting used, what would you feel about it?
If you are talking about personal data, right?
True.
That is not used. Whatever data which is available on social media in the public domain, that certainly gets consumed by these large language models applications. So be it Lambda, Palm, Bard. So whatever LLM based products which are available, these are the applications which are consuming this large volume of data. So the volume of parameters that are consumed. So if I talk about Palm, 540 billion parameters, columns, words, tokens, that's huge, right? So that is the volume of data that gets into this model. Now, certainly, what gets into is the volume, quantity. What we want is quality,
Definitely.
right? So that's the thing, and that is the difference delta that we are currently having. Right?
Saugata, anything which you would like to add on that? What are your views? If the data is getting used as a marketing user for this piece of data, how comfortable you will be with the data getting used?
So the data is getting used, I would say. Definitely not the PIA as Sanjeev said, but the data is getting used because it's the same data that is getting processed over and over again, right? To create the context in which the answers are being generated, right? So I don't have a problem as long as the data gets used to my benefit, but if the data gets shared, then I definitely have a problem, right? That's one.
Well said.
Second, going back to the first question that you asked, what is prompt engineering? From a layman's perspective, from I'm not an engineer, far from it. Uh, the way I understood prompt engineering first was it is what makes AI into generative AI, right? So that's my 2 cents on prompts engineering.
Thank you. Fair. And yes, we all have the answer that at least, yes, all the data which we are punching into the chat GPTs and the bards is getting used to help somebody else at least. Thanks for this, Sanjeev and the panel. Sanjeev, the next question again to you. When it comes to bias on AI, and we say that the AI is biased, what does that mean and why should we care about this?
So I started with that only, then I stopped, right? So because the quantity is getting pushed, the quality is not getting pushed. I think this is the problem with most of these LLM models, the products which are available. So just by pushing 540 billion parameters, I think there is a lot that has to be done because we are also pushing noise into the model, and this noise is then converted into these biases that we are seeing, right? And lot of these biases are also triggering some kind of social repercussions, right? Gender biasness, right? So if I ask a bot about pilots, so it will start with he, the schedule of a pilot starting with he. If I talk about so some of the researchers which I was studying, it was categorizing of, American Africans as part of major criminal this thing segment or cohort. I think these are the biases which have ramification and impact directly on the economy, society, communities. Different kind of biases are brought in, right, because of this. So that is what has to be optimized, and that optimization will come only when we are optimizing the input data that we are supplying to these large language models.
Okay.
And that has to be optimized.
Perfect. So definitely, if the decision was kept to an AI to decide whether who's the criminal, is it the Afro-American or the white-skinned person, definitely it may, based on the bias, there is a high probability it may select the Afro-American if all the other factors were equal. So the judgment is being questioned over here now.
Absolutely. And that's how there is a normalization. There is a mitigation that is required in these kind of models so that the responses when generated is not pointed to any kind of, so see, because this can trigger religious conflicts also.
True.
Right? And that's why it has to be properly mitigated in the training data itself. And that should be pushed to the models as training part.
Perfect. Thanks, Sanjeev. That helps. Kasam, my next question would be to you. Now, considering that we know that, hey, this is biased and the prompts have to be taken care of, can you help us with some examples of biased AI outputs other than the one which Sanjeev already shared?
Okay, so for example, consider for the search engines basically used for the job search engines. Okay, so most of the time, how we search is that we need a young energetic professionals. Okay, so the output would be within the age of 18 to 25.
Bias prompt.
Artificial model doesn't know, right? It just captures young, energetic, and all. But if you add or if you put an input as based on skills, then the output would be much diverse.
That's where you start engineering it now.
Yes. So that is how the bias plays, or based on what prompts you are putting in. For example, what are the products? For example, you have one product, okay, and you're asking the model whether women like my product. So the answer would be gender biased, if you say. But if at all you ask who all likes my products, then the answer would be whether it's women or men or anyone. So this kind of, the way you talk with the models depends on what the output would be, because model doesn't know what it needs to respond. It all depends upon what input it gets. So this is how this biasness can be optimized.
Fair. And there are studies around this thing also, that even for jobs, let's say, when people are searching for some specific skill set, it will either decide that, okay, based on this particular job, either specify a male resume
Yes. So typically, if you enter software engineer, you will get male resumes. So you need to be very much, uh, think on what exactly which keywords you are entering. Like it should be a kind of software engineers with adding with the skills and more information and context behind it. So basically, this happens with this. If you just enter software engineers, as Sir said about the pilots, there's the same thing happens with software engineers. Basically, you will get all the outputs for males.
Fact. And I hope definitely we all of us understand that why we should care about it, because we are using it more and more on a daily basis, and we see that many of us are making a mistake of trusting the AI 100%. That's what is happening. But yes, this is the other side of the story. That's where the inputs are really crucial. But yes, any other use case which any one of you would like to share? Because we need a few more examples around the marketing domain. So yes, open to all of you if any other example comes across.
I think just to add to what the biases we were talking about, I think it is also important for us to understand how a large language model or a chatbot works, right? At the back end, what are the algorithms, or what are the different, what is that is captured at the back end as part of natural language processing, and as part of the classification classification or sequencing of the words or the sentences that we are pushing back to the user, right? So if we talk about NLP, the entity contextuality, right, with respect to different grammatical construction of words, right, different type of categorization in terms of natural language processing as part of English language, right? Apart from that, these tokens, these taggings, POS, part of speech taggings, are then taken as embedding. So there are different libraries also which embed a particular word, because there are different type of issues when we are talking about if the input data has got negations, right? So the way NLP would read it. So for example, the doctor wasn't, we can say, we can very clearly say the doctor wasn't so good. So now if we talk about doctor wasn't so good, there are words appearing good, there are words appearing wasn't. So do I split the word into wasn't and then use it as a part of response, or otherwise it will start giving me, because the intent, the sentiment is wrong or is negative. But the output that will go as a positive sentiment, because the word good is figuring there. Right, so that's the way we optimize. So this word, either we remove it, optimize the input parameters into the data model or AI algorithm, and then tweak it, then prompt the next right question.
Perfect. That helps. Thank you.
So, Kaushal, can I ask a question to the room, please? How many of us are marketeers here?
I would also.
Oh, lovely. So, I'm in majority. Great. Lovely. So, let me try and give you a simple use case of how at least I have understood Gen AI and prompt engineering, right? It's very similar in my mind as to writing a brief. right? It's writing a brief. When you're entering or I'm entering any kind of prompts into a Gen AI tool, there is some idea of what I want as an output, right? Partly that also contributes to the bias, to be very honest, right? Just the way we know when we see a campaign being presented to us, we know, yaar, ye chalega, nahi chalega, gut feeling hota hai, ye hota hai. Same thing happens here also. So the more we are able to be precise, the more we are able to be clear, the more we are able to be concise, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a machine. And this is one of the reasons why, and I'll call it out in this open forum, tech will never replace humans. कोई कितने भी कोशिश कर ले, right? So the more we are able to be precise, simple, and know what we have in our mind in terms of the output, in terms of expectations from the output, I think we can leverage this particular piece of technology to optimize what we are doing. Not to save cost, that's a byproduct. Not to reduce the number of people in our teams, that again is not acceptable because each one of us have a role to play, right? But most importantly, to bring in efficiency in the output and bring in speed in the way we are delivering the outputs. Because some of us, all of us who are into moment marketing, for example, know that we have to churn things out. I see a lady nodding her head. Thank you for that. Some of us who are into moment marketing know that the speed of response, the turnaround times are super fast, right? And those are areas where it can come in really handy, right? So it's a balance. It's like fire. We play with fire at our own risk. So it's like that. If we know how to handle it, if we know how to manage it, it's a great tool. If we let it run amok, it will do what it can do, right? So that balance is what I think we need to bring in as marketeers and practitioners in this particular space.
Thanks, Saugata. But my next question would be to you only to continue that part thing. But how do marketers now enhance this AI language model with specific tasks so that it can deliver better outputs?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think marketeers enhance language models. Okay, because I'll speak for myself and not for the group here. I don't understand what an LLM is at the core of it and how it works, right? What I do understand is what it can give me.
True.
And that understanding has come as a function of, multiple trials and errors over a period of time, right? So, like Doc was mentioning, I didn't know that there are so many million parameters that go in. And honestly, do I care? I don't. I don't care. मेरा काम होने से मतलब है, right?
Yeah.
So I think the best thing that a marketer can do, to make it more sharp, more efficient, more relevant, is to be clear, precise, and smart in terms of putting in the prompts, in terms of putting in the queries, in terms of putting in the messages, so that what we get as an output helps all of us, in terms of doing our jobs.
So be clear, be precise, and ensure that you are giving the right communication to the prompt.
Yeah, and just the way you would brief an agency, right? In certain cases, you give examples to an agency saying, "यार मेरे को ऐसा एक environment चाहिए." In some cases, you leave it completely as a white canvas and let the agency do the ideation and come back. But that's, I think, as a marketer, that's our gut, that's our experience, that's our understanding of the subject, more importantly, and the brand and the consumer, right? Which doesn't change. So I wouldn't say it's an alternate, but it's another option that we have, depending on the situation, the priority, and the instance that we are trying to market for, which is at our disposal.
Perfect.
I think one more point which is very important here. If you look at the data, right now the data that has been pushed for the model, right, it is quite global, right? It is a general data, general purpose data, right? When we are building the model has to take the inputs of the right parameters, right? Right input, right questions, right solutions, right? That should be going into the model to predict next set of words, next set of content that a user is looking for. So for example, in telco, we can certainly go ahead and write content, right? Because there are messages which are sent to subscribers containing different kind of schemes, offerings, propositions, right? Now, if I go back to social media, if I go to ChatGPT and ask for certain content, right, it will pull all the contents from different telcos and different kind of messages which are pushed, right, and then try to compile. Like at the end of the day, somebody has to see again that what are the lines which are written and how do I compile it or make it short and then send it to the subscribers. And then those messages have to be relevant enough to result in adoptions, right? Result in value, because that is what is going to run the business, isn't it? So that is something which is very important point.
So if I may just add, sorry, I just a quick point to add. See, another thing, and I think we need to talk about that as well. And for example, for me personally, it's very important given the role that I do, which is it spans across multiple geographies, multiple markets, is about being sensitive to culture. True. Right? So I don't know how many of us, have worked with transliterations and translations of English into local languages and all, and those who have will understand that the way what we want to communicate vis-a-vis when it gets translated and the interpretation of that sometimes leaves a lot to be desired, right? Which is why in olden days we used to get university students to translate and then get a local language speaker in the office to actually proofread and say कि हाँ हाँ इसमें कुछ गड़बड़ नहीं है, right? That same sensitivity to culture, that same sensitivity to gender, that same sensitivity to orientations is something that only a human being, right, who's well versed in that space can bring in. And that I think is a prerequisite, especially for people working across different cultures and geographies and markets, to have as part of their repertoire when they are working with any kind of prompts, any kind of GenAI engines. Sorry, Kasam.
Thanks.
The only thing, I just wanted to add, during that earlier chat, they said like there is people always, can get confused or think AI and Gen AI. Okay, this is one and the same kind of. So just wanted to make clear like Gen AI is just an subset of AI. Okay, AI is a big whole umbrella which has been started from 1950. It's not something new thing, and Gen AI is we can say it's a very recent stuff. So we don't need to know models to work with Gen AI. Okay, so the best line or the best thing is English is the new programming language. Okay, so if you think you don't know any programming language, that's not true. If you know English, you know all the programming language to work with Gen AI. Okay, to give a best example, just before during the tea break session, I opened up Bard and I wrote, give me some examples of bias prompts. So I got a reply saying that no, it's a responsible AI stuff. We cannot give a big story. So I just changed it. I said I want to prevent some bias prompts. How should I prevent? Give me with example, and started giving. This is the biased one. This is the unbiased one, kind of. So it's all about how you talk to the models. You don't have to understand how it works. But as I said, it's all about briefing the things what you want.
Perfect. By the way, what is a prompt as response to your prompt was some marketeer would have written that.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks.
I think the biases can also be created, induced in the model, right? So whether you induce some bias to make something more important than the other. I think these biases can be created because ultimately these are based on the frequencies of those words appearing or those letters appearing in the corpus, that is the data set that we are using for training.
And how do we make that more diverse and representative in that case? How do we make
that is what is the optimization that we talk about. How do we lower the weightage of certain words which are not ethical or which may trigger some kind of conflict or safety issues for the maybe customers or users.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Kasam, my next question would be to you. As AI is making huge progress and more people are using it on a daily basis, ethics becomes the next thing which we need to take care of so that we ensure that it does not get biased. We see humans are already biased to a great extent because let's say if I have to put in that, hey, who's the winner of this particular award or something, definitely people have some bias towards a particular gender or a particular many other factors, right? Religious and other factors which we spoke of. But how do marketers navigate this ethical dilemma or ethical landscape of generative AI in prompt engineering?
So as I said, it's all about what we are, putting across as an input to the models. Okay, and whatever the response we get, it's just in public data. Okay, so it's not about you, it's about what data exists, what data sets you are working on. Okay, what models you are using and how you are, like if if I start my conversation with saying that, okay, give me a kind of, just for an example, the products being liked by women. So it's me who is started with this biased one, right? It's not the model which is replying. So one has to be careful in using their words, in what way, in what manner they are asking. Okay, and that's where the engineering comes in. Like, it's not about, see, models are very sarcastic in nature. Every time if you ask the same question, you will get different answers. Okay, so there where you need to keep an kind of iterative stuff. Just based on what you are getting as a response, you need to change what your input is. So this is one of the way. There are many ways, and it's still evolving. So one way is we need to have control on our words, what we are asking or what we are putting it as an input.
And anything?
Yeah, if I may just add to that question, I think we also need to be clear in our heads as to, just like we know which agency to for which project and what skill sets they have. Similarly, we also need to know where to use this tool, right? So just to build on the point that you made, if I'm doing market planning, right, at some point, and I'm trying to figure out which product to launch, maybe I'll ask a question like that. What you just said, what products do women launch? But if I'm a marketer, why would I even ask that question? Right? I would test the veracity of the value proposition that I want to, put out in the market for my product when I'm launching it or marketing it. So what is the right question to ask? I think is the first honest question we need to ask ourselves. Right? Otherwise, वो तो मशीन है, वो जवाब दे देगा, मशीन ने जवाब दिया, मेरे को कल बॉस को दिखाना है, मैं दिखा दूंगा, and things will go on, and then somewhere something will go wrong, and then the thing that will get blamed is the machine. Right? So I think the first and the most important thing is to be honest, to start with, to know that whether this is really the platform I need to start working with for the problem that I'm trying to solve. Am I bringing a knife to a gunfight, or am I bringing a Bofors to a knife fight? I think that's the question that we need to ask ourselves first, and that to me is the starting point.
And I think the important point then is how we are training the model, right? So I am training the model for a healthcare issue, or I'm searching for a solve for a telecom industry, right? So the input data will certainly be different, right? So currently, what is made is a social media-based input model that has been created. So it has to be customized for customized. So customized task-oriented modeling has to be done. So that specific problem, if I want to use it for network problem solution, it should prompt the moment I ask a question to the bot, right, to an LLM model, BARD or Chat GPT or etc. It should start triggering me questions which are taking me to the right direction, to a correct direction of resolving that particular fault, right? So next, what is the next step? What is the next step? It should be able to articulate and give me the solving step, and that stage has not reached. So because this is currently evolving, right? This is being done on the open source data. So maybe that stage will reach.
True. To your point of open source data, as a marketer, especially who's supposed to be in charge of things, but there are, like I said, so many markets, so many geographies, so many campaigns running simultaneously. What gives me sleepless nights the moment I hear ChatGPT, or sorry, not to take any product's name, but the platform has been used, is the fear of plagiarism. Right? Especially in customer facing communications, because it is open source data. Do I have the right and the authority to use that data, or use that information, or that piece of language, or that tonality in the customer communication that I'm putting out? That's something that gives me sleepless nights. So I would rather have it, for example, today written by a writer at an agency who owns the IP to that particular output, and therefore gives me the right to use that output, right? Than again to save time and save some money, generate it through open source data, and then probably land my brand in a bigger piece of trouble than it would otherwise be. I'll spend a day more probably. But I think the benefits far outweigh the risks in sometimes being a little traditional and conservative while the model is evolving.
Very true, Saugata. And since you are very close to the SEO space, I would like your view on that as well, because more and more marketers are using content for making more and more blogs on the website, generating more content, etc. What would be your views in terms of generating content via AI for the purpose of publishing more blogs, publishing more content?
See, like I said, when the blog gets published, do I have the rights to use the content that is being put out in the blog? That needs to be checked. And
in this case, it wouldn't be, because the content
we
is coming
don't,
from
right?
AI.
We don't. So I would say not a direct correlation or a direct analogy, but it was when in the initial days of SEO, when probably you and I started out, we had this black hat and white hat techniques for SEO. Right? So I would say I would create, and I have in my team, at least internally, we have created a parallel of a white hat set of practices that we use the platform for when it comes to creating blogs for this for SEO especially, right? Because once put out there in the digital world, nothing gets deleted. Let's be honest. So that's what we would do.
Unless you physically delete it by yourself from the website.
No, but even then, the link somebody would have had a screenshot shared, somebody would have captured it, and thousands of things keep happening, as all of us know, right? So why take that risk? Again, that's my question.
So avoid it. That's what your answer would be.
It's
to
too
the
early
audience.
in the day right now. So as I said, the benefits far outweigh the risks in many cases, and which is why the point I was making. It's about first asking the question that is this the platform to solve for this problem? And if the answer is a big resounding yes from within, from experts from within the team, go for it. If not, take an informed call.
My follow-up question again to you on the Saugata. So, any other best practices or effective practices that you feel that could be used with prompt engineering to make the outputs better?
I think we have already touched upon it, so maybe I'm going to repeat what has already been said.
Those 2-3 points, yes. Anything other than that?
Other than that, I would say before I put it out in the market, right, I would do an A/B test on it. Okay, I would do an A/B test on it. Something that we are used to doing. We know how to do it, and once we do an A/B test on it, it gives us two perspectives, right? If it works, we would probably internalize and intellectualize as to why it worked, and if it didn't, we'll do the opposite. Right? So that's something I would definitely do, and especially when we are creating content which is either personalized or in the case of B2B, hyper personalized to the segment of one, I think the A/B test becomes even more critical.
Okay, fair. Thanks. So we have 9 more minutes. This would be the last question from my side. And recently, I had this experience of connecting with another agency, or you can term it as in not an agency, but a brand which was into the award space. And what they did is to identify, because the number of people from whom the selected few people were to be shortlisted was quite a few, in hundreds. So they decided that, okay, why not use AI for this particular purpose, right? And what they did is, based on the specific number of past winners, they provided those inputs that, hey, these are the past winners, and they provided that input to AI. And based on that, also provided the data set of the people who had submitted the entries this year, and AI generated the output. Now, this is one of the practice which many people may start following as marketers, because yes, we have a problem of plenty, be it number of resumes which we need to shortlist, or be it the award ceremonies where number of people entering the award are many, but yes, the number of winners are few. Or even in the case of maybe matrimonial, right? The prospects are many, but we want to select that one or two. Sorry, in matrimonial at least one, right? At least that one person. But yeah, when situations like this comes in, should marketers, as generic prompt engineers, should they use AI or should they not use it? What are your views on this particular case? Yeah,
See,
Kasam.
okay. See, again, when you said that they have provided all the data of initial winners and all,
yeah,
okay.
of the past
So it
years.
depends what data they are providing. It should not be the age. It should not be the gender. It should be purely based on whatever skills they have won or whatever qualities they had. It should not be that the winner was 18 female, 14 female kind of stuff.
So,
Okay.
so they provide a LinkedIn profile. Now, again, there would be bias coming based on that as
Yeah,
well.
so it depends upon how you are feeding that particular model, right? So if you don't give all this kind of gender, age sort of thing, you should not get, will not expect any kind of biased output as such.
So you should not get biased. So it can be used.
It can be used, but in a proper way. Like as I said, it should not expose those data which you don't want to get as an output, kind of, which on that category.
So as your suggestion to the marketers, Kasam, use it or not use it. Let's keep it that way.
Use it smartly. You can, when you write the prompt, say that it should be unique with a human tone, human professional tone, unique with not, it should not get plagiarized. You will get the right output.
Okay.
I will tell you one example. I have We have tested this with one of the publisher. I don't want to name them, but they gave us one title, and we wrote an entire chapter, you can say, for 3,000 words with this prompts, changing the prompts, and then we submitted it, and it got passed. It was not plagiarized, it was unique, it was ready to publish. So it depends again how you engineer your prompts, and you can win.
Okay. Saugata, what would you like to say on that? Is this the right approach?
So let me ask you a question. It's about an ad entry or a jury selection or something to that effect, right?
Not jury selection, who are the winners for this
Winners,
particular award?
winners,
Yeah.
okay. And you're making the participants or the entrants write a submission.
Yeah. So submission would be there plus the LinkedIn profile of theirs,
Theirs
plus
would
the
be
LinkedIn
there.
profile of the past
Yeah,
winners.
yeah. So as of today, I will not participate in any such.
So you would not
entry.
suggest something
No,
like this?
No, I wouldn't. Why?
Because of the
Because
maturity.
as somebody who's been used to reviewing thousands of such entries, I know the blood, sweat, and pain that goes into creating those submissions.
True.
And I would not, l- bet on the success rate of that particular entry, howsoever good it is, because of, like he rightly said, potential bias that may creep in, or the irrelevancy of the data that goes in the prompt. Right? There is a reason why juries are created. There is a reason why human intellect and human capital is deployed. People deploy time, effort to judge those particular entries and select the winners. So till the time the platform reaches the model, a stage where it is, at least say 80, 85, 90% foolproof, I will not participate in any such.
Thank you. Sanjeev, what would be your
My view would be, I think it can be taken as assisted intelligence, right?
assistant?
Assisted intelligence,
Okay.
right? And that can only help guide you, direct you in a particular area or direction, whether you want to give a what. So I think manually it is impossible for a human being to go through millions of documents, right? And then scan or identify certain features. So that's the kind of a difference that I'm talking about. And get the summary of the best persons for who are best ideally fitted to that particular reward, right, or award. So I think it should be a match of the two.
Okay.
So it can be an assisted solution to start with.
But in that assistant thing, again, Sanjeev, the possibility is that it may take away some of the people who are genuine. Now, let's say when you're saying assistant in this case, there are, let's say, 500, let's say, entries, right? As an assistant, I would expect that, okay, from 500, it makes it 100. So that 100 is easier for processing at a human level. But what about the biases then? For those 400 people,
No,
maybe
so
remove
I'm
some
not
of the
saying
Afro-Americans.
Yeah. So I'm Kaushal. I'm not saying that it has to be 100%. So that's why I started with assisted intelligence.
Okay.
And that's why it can be summarized to a particular level from where a human can pick it and find solutions, right? And go scan it and choose the right person, right? So once the number drops from 5 lakh entries to maybe manageable 500, selection becomes more easy.
So we may have to use AI to some extent.
Certainly, we have to.
Okay.
So the buzzword for assistant is nowadays co-pilot.
Copilot. Okay, perfect. That's a word coming from the author, so please remember that. Perfect. That's all the questions from my side. We have 3 more minutes and time for just one question from the audience. If any one of you would like to ask the question to this panel. Perfect. Can we pass the mic over there? Here, the lady in the blue sari.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Mahua from Black Box. I'm a tech marketer, and my question is about prompt engineering. So, when we are writing some prompts or when we are asking generative AI some questions, so everybody has a different way of asking things. But being a tech marketer, like we are talking about a solution, and at the same time, around the globe, maybe 4 million people are asking the same question with the same intent, with the same keywords, with the same benefits in mind, and they want to sell their product. So at that time, the content that is created through generative AI, they may be a bit similar. And all of us posting that digitally on the platforms, and the audience who are reading that, they may find it is dull and monotonous because they have already read it before from somebody else. So when we are saying that AI is no more a choice, how can my content stand out?
Anybody would like to take this question? Sure, Sanjeev.
So I think the answer lies in the data, the training data that we capture, right? Because you are querying to whom? You are querying to a engine which is trained on the public data, on a social media data. So what response you will get, same response I will get. Till I train the model in the contextual to that particular industry or that particular segment, the responses are not going to be very different, right? So that's one crack. And certainly the training part, how do we train the textual input, the large volume of corpus that we have got, that becomes very, very important.
So
With respect to embeddings, how we are embedding those tokens, or how we are doing the POS taggings, etc., etc.
Thanks.
Let me give you a marketeer's take on that, right? If I were to rephrase what you just said, you're talking, let's say we are selling an undifferentiated solution, where in the real world, the final decision will be made, let's say, on parameters like ability to deliver, pricing, and the contract, the deal structure, and so on and so forth, right? The only differentiator that you would have, I would have, all of us in the room would have as marketeers for that thing, for that solution, would be the value proposition that we have created, right? And if we lead with that value proposition, and to his point on training, right, if I were to contextualize it, if we lead with the value proposition, the model will get trained accordingly, because it is created to generate responses based on the inputs that you give, and your value proposition nobody else can own, right? So if you start with that thought process and know what to enter and lead with the value proposition, I think you have your answer. And let me tell you, we have done this multiple number of times, right? Because some of our products are undifferentiated, and it has given us good returns and dividends in terms of the outputs.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. That's 0.00 on the clock. And thanks everyone for being a wonderful audience. Thank you, panel.
Thank you so much, panelists. May I request you to be on stage with us, and may I request Mr. Mohit Gupta to hand over the mementos to all our panelists and our moderator, of course. Can we have a huge round of applause for our panelists and our moderator for such an exciting and engaging conversation?